evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. We are so happy to see you all. If you could please stand and join us. People come together, strangers, neighbors, our blood is one. Children of generations, of every nation, of kingdom come. So don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. So take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from. Oh, 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 Jesus, our redemption, our salvation is in His blood. Jesus, light of heaven, friend forever, His kingdom come. So don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. So take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from. Oh, 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 Sing wide, oh you heavens, let the praise go up as Jesus, light of heaven, friend forever, his kingdom come.
You might have seen when you got here, we had a card out at the entrance. We just wanted you guys to think about what would you do if you had 3 weeks left to live. If you haven't seen it, if you still want to have a look, it's just outside. The bathrooms are here at the back, and at the end, please just hang around. We have some food. We would love to have a chat with you.
I count on one thing, the same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. And yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh, yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Yes, I will. I count on one thing, the same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. And the same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh, yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Yes, I will for all my days. Yes, I will, and I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. And nothing can stand against. Oh, yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh, yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Yes, I will for all my days. Yes, I will for all my days. Yes, I will. This is no performance, Lord, I pray it's worship. Empty words I can't afford. I'm not chasing fearless.
may be seated.
When I grow up, I want to go to the moon!
Why wait?
Boom. That's on. I'll start that again. I'm Jeff. Sorry, I'm Joel. Yeah, he, him, ENFP, and my Enneagram is type 3 wing 2. Now you know everything there is to possibly know about me. I'm going to actually start with prayer, and then we'll get into it properly. So yeah, just join me in prayer if you'd like. Lord God, thank you for all of us being here. Thank you that you gather us together to learn, to enjoy each other's company, to grow. And I pray that this would be a time where we can learn with our heads, we can learn knowledge of some kind, but also I guess that we would be open in our hearts to be transformed by you, by your word. And I pray that that can be a sincere transformation that we approach with honesty and humility. So in your name, God, we trust. Amen. Let me tell you a little story. There's a group of friends. Picture a group of friends walking up a hill, just having a yarn. Talking about things they've seen and things they want to do. The sky above them is beginning to get dark in anticipation of dusk coming. The guys get to the top of the hill, and one of them asks to go off somewhere a little more private with just a few of them. They all sort of, roll their eyes a bit. He gets like this. They all think we know better than to question it by now. He's done this a few times before. And so the one guy and a few of his buddies, they go off separately. And they leave the others behind to, sit down and rest, maybe pray, because they're pretty spiritual people like that. And as the smaller group walk, this few guys is a lot more quieter. The air's getting colder, the sky is now getting, deeper than navy. It's like ink at this point. The guy who just asked to be with this smaller group, he starts breathing funny, like maybe he's winded, they think. But they quickly realize actually he's like crying. He's like weeping, actually. He's breaking down and he looks at them with tears, suddenly in his very red eyes. And he says, guys, like grief is crushing my soul. Like, I feel like I'm dead. And these other guys are a little taken aback by this sort of out of nowhere statement. This guy is usually pretty cool, especially when things are getting hectic and they're freaking out. He's normally the grounded one. So he then asks them to stay where they are, and he wants to go a little further alone. And they see him about 15 feet away just fall to the ground onto his face. And he starts begging to God, his tears and his snot mixing into the dirt underneath him. He begs to be relieved of this kind of agony, some kind of intolerable burden on him that he's feeling. Yet, they hear him say, as he begs God to relieve him of this intense burden, not as I will, but as you will. He begs again, twice more in this prayer. And then eventually he comes back to his few friends, and they together return to the larger group. The man who was crying to God a moment ago gets back and sees that the other guys are all asleep. And he says, "Get up, guys. It's time for me to die." When Jesus died, this was not a surprise event. He knew well in advance that this was going to happen, and numerous times he kind of told his close friends that, guys, a time is coming when I'm going to be dying, like soon. And this is how it's going to happen. He tried to lay that groundwork out for them, so there were no surprises. He knew what his purpose on earth was. He knew that it included betrayal and suffering and an early demise. He suffered the full brunt of knowing all the horrible things that he was destined for throughout his life. And we see that in the story I just told, which was, it's adapted. It's just a sort of take on Matthew chapter 26, that as the time was drawing closer, he really did know it. So for those of you who filled out the cards at the start, we asked you a few questions around what would you do if you had 3 weeks to live. So we answered some of these questions. Personally, so I read ahead just to make sure I wasn't going to get any curveballs. I won't read all of them, but I really greatly enjoyed some of them, I will say. So let's see. There's a few good ones here. So grilled, burgers, pizza, these were common final meals, which is interesting. So we're not super healthy, it seems, but that's okay. You've only got a few weeks anyway, so enjoy it. So wholeheartedly agree with that. Someone said new foods though, which I think is cool. We've got some adventurous types. What would you spend your money on? Boutique vodka. That's an interesting response from whoever you are. 3 weeks left to live, bit of vodka, I don't blame you. We also asked who you would spend your time with, and exclusively pretty much it was friends and family. So good to see that we care about our loved ones. That's good. I appreciate that answer. And we had a few people say they would travel around the world, or some people didn't want to travel, but those who did, Europe, the Pacific, Japan, there was a few places like that I saw. Really appreciated some good answers. Someone actually said around Australia, so they appreciate, already where they are. That's good. Someone said they'd spend their money on others and charity, so we've got a few liars in the audience too. That's good to see. Wow, that's good. I have to say, it's pretty interesting when we look at these answers. I don't think that we will release all of the cards publicly, so that might be your only preview of them, I'm afraid. It's interesting the kinds of questions that we tend to think about and the way that we tend to answer those. Yeah, I don't have any massive, social commentary to make on that, but I just think it's, interesting that meals and who we spend with. There's a few, I think, important questions that start to come to our mind. I think the meal is just a fun one, but, who would you spend your time with? A few of us have money or material possessions, some kind of wealth, and it starts to raise, what are we actually going to do with that? Like, what is the best way, that we can, what is the best way we can use that? So, I think it shows what we put value in, we want to make the most of that. And that's really what I want to talk about today. So my instinct to these kinds of questions, is that there isn't a right answer. There's not a correct answer for what you should eat. Are you going to travel? What are you going to do with your money? I don't know that there's like a correct answer to any of that kind of thing. But looking at the last phase of Jesus' life before he died, willingly, and knowing that it was coming, I think we can get actually some really good inspiration about some things to just be mindful of, things that we could think about that are the best way to value our time. Before we begin, there's a disclaimer that I would like to make, which is that you might be thinking, well, I probably have more than 3 weeks left to live, so, maybe I should just wait, between sort of 10 and 50 years until this might be more relevant to me. That's fair, but look, what I would say is that talking tonight about the best way to value our time, because we only have so much, even if it's more than 3 weeks, firstly, you never really know. So there is that. But also, I think we value things like, say, diamonds over a lump of granite because diamonds are rarer. So scarcity or rarity means kind of greater value, typically in our culture. And actually in a lot of cultures, diamonds tend to be worth money most places you go. So I think there's some sense in that. And I think how much rarer is there than, a single life that you get? And how much more valuable can time be when you have no idea how long there is left for each of us? And also seeing the wonderful, great things, the potential that our time has, the great things that people have achieved and that we individually and collectively can achieve. So maybe there is a lot of value in our time, even if we have more than 3 weeks left. So maybe either way, we should definitely very much value our time because we only have so much left. Jesus did, and that's That's an argument I want to make that Jesus did. And there's a few things in our story that I read earlier, which I'll now read the actual proper Bible version of now, at least in part, that I think we can draw from. So the first few verses say, Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." And so here's my first big thing. Jesus went to this place to pray, and he brought his disciples, these guys who they knew him best, better than anyone else. And he didn't leave them at the bottom of the mountain, which he very well could have done. So he brought them with him. And then a select few, again, he showed, this more vulnerable, this most kind of viscerally raw parts of himself too. The part that was terribly burdened, that begged and cried. Jesus had his friends close and his closer friends closer. I don't know if that sentence makes sense. It does in my mind. To me, this led to some thinking, and it led to a guy for me called Elliot Dallin. So this guy was in his late 20s when he was given a terminal diagnosis of cancer. He was told he didn't have that long to live, a few months. So he wrote this reflection towards the end of his life. It got posted in the Guardian, an online kind of newspaper journal thing. And he listed in that sort of 5 main particular points that he thought were really important, that he really wanted to pass on as just kind of these most crucial ideas to him. And one of these was to be vulnerable and to connect with others. And so kind of within that, he had this particular quote, which hopefully will kind of make its way onto the screen in a moment. So on the point of being vulnerable and connecting with others, it says, "We live in a society that prizes capability and independence, 2 things that cancer often slowly strips away from you. That was naturally a very difficult pill to swallow for me, a healthy, able, late 20-something male. But having to allow myself to be vulnerable and accept help has given me the best 2 years of my life, which was pretty inconceivable at the time of diagnosis." So part of valuing our time is valuing those who are closest to us. And a lot of us saw that, I want to spend time with my friends and my family. It totally makes sense. And so I think to do that, part of what that is being this certain rare kind of honesty that maybe is pretty hard to do when we don't think, we've only got 3 weeks left to live. It's this, we want to avoid the sappy movie cliches of kind of getting near the end and regretting all the things left unsaid. I think life is too short, irrespective of how long your life is, to not be utterly authentic with those that you love and trust. And so when it comes to how we would spend our time with those friends and family, if we had 3 weeks left to live, we would want to make sure, we would want to tell them, for certain how much we love them and how much we value them. And the things that we were thinking, the things that we were feeling, we'd probably drop some of those, what if it comes across a bit awkward? What if, and I think we would lose some of those inhibitions. And I actually think there's value in considering that before that point. And I really think this is how you can unlock some of your strongest relationships, your best chances to experience and reciprocate and share God's love to those around you. So to abruptly insert my "I'm still young and hip" reference, I think there's a good contrast here of Batman and Captain America. So they're both masked heroes. Captain America in this particular image is not masked, but they both often wear masks. And one of them, Captain America, is loved in his fictional world, Earth, that is, which is totally not real. But the other is not loved by the public. Citizens of Gotham, which is where Batman is, they generally fear him, especially in the most recent film, if you've seen it, Hot Dang. So as an audience of these films, we get to know them a little bit better. We get to know that they're both fighting for justice. They've got the good values that we have, and so we root for them. But the difference is that Batman doesn't make those speeches, or he's not open to declare his intentions, to declare what he's thinking, what he's feeling, what he cares about, his desire for justice, as an example. So he tends to kind of brood in the dark on his own, like a little weirdo. So my point is, like good old Captain America opening up to show what he cares about, why he does what he does, allowing people to return with kind of admiration and warmth towards him. We can make the most of our relationships, of our time with these people, investing in them in a similar way. In between kind of editing sessions of putting this whole talk together, I left a little placeholder phrase just to remind myself of the point that I was going to flesh out a little bit more. And so I just wrote, "Be recklessly vulnerable, you prats." And honestly, I think that sums it up pretty well. So I think that's a really good way to value our time, to value our limited time that we have, to not just have people that we love, but to love them intentionally and to be very open and vulnerable with them, and to share the deepest parts of ourselves with those that we trust, not with anyone and everyone. Because I think in doing so, that opens them up to sharing in that with you, and I think that's where God can do a lot of really wonderful personal transformation and accountability and things like that, which I will mention later. But for a moment, let's just read a little further into our story with Jesus and what happened on that mountaintop on that particular night. So going a little farther, it says in Matthew, Jesus fell with his face to the ground and he prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." And then he returned to his disciples and he found them sleeping. So he went away a second time and he prayed, "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done." And then he prayed a third time, saying the same thing. So Jesus went to a solitary place, a place to be near his loved ones, because he wants them to see him, to know him well, but also then to be, in a sense, in his own space, to be with God and to pray. But not just to pray. It wasn't just a, "Hey God, thank you for today, please bless this food into my body, amen," and then, proceeded to eat his Big Mac meal. But he showed this deep, intense humility, this honesty to express to God exactly what he was struggling with, exactly what he was feeling, what he wanted, which was to be relieved of this pain. There wasn't anything held back. There wasn't this fake, "Oh, I'm so good, I'm so perfect." There was just something raw and emotional about what happens. It was totally #no filter. I can't believe I wrote that. But this is a model for us, I really believe. A model for us, whether we have 3 weeks or 3 decades left to live. Because I think life is too short to not be honest with God in a very similar way as to what I mentioned with our friends, our loved ones. So we might have a relationship, individually already now. You might be able to answer that question fairly confidently in yourself. Yeah, I already know God. I think that's fine. And if that's the case, thumbs up, love that for you. I think this comes from a place of, I really think it's not uncommon for there to be something that we might hold back. Maybe a certain sin or habit that we have that we don't want to mention in prayer, because then we'd have to stop, or we might have a feeling about something else or someone else, or you might have a feeling about yourself or even a feeling towards God. Some things feel embarrassing or shameful